Well, man, it's great to meet you. I'm looking forward to getting into New Moon. And before we do that, I want to know,
Mm.
first and foremost, how did you get through the pandemic? That was quite a thing for all the artists on the planet. How did you get through it? And how did it influence either this album or the way that you do things now?
The pandemic was a really challenging time. I mean, of course, New York City was a crazy place, so we didn't leave our house. I was lucky to not live in a building, like an apartment building, which has a shared elevator. I know people that live in those. They didn't leave their apartment literally for months at a time,
Yeah.
which is crazy. We had a little outdoor space, so we spent time, but work-wise, it was rough. I applied for a lot of emergency grants and relief grants for artists, and I was very fortunate to receive funding. I'm one of the co-founders of Brooklyn Raga Massive, which is a nonprofit artist collective with artists, musicians rooted in Indian classical music. So we do a lot of work around New York City. We perform and present tons of stuff. We actually figured out ways to do a whole online workshop series. And we wrote a lot of grants also to help support artists. So I ended up getting some funding through Brooklyn Raga Massive and kept pretty busy trying to curate workshops and setting up the tech behind that with my friend. So we made things happen. I did a bunch of like terrible virtual concerts that are never fun to
Yeah.
do, but you do them, and now they're around still.
Yeah.
Um, but I ended up investing in like um, interface and getting Logic and getting my recording myself chops up. I mean, a lot of good things I got to say actually came out of it because
Sure.
I didn't have gear. Now I have gear. I
Yeah.
didn't know how to use stuff and record myself well. Now I'm getting pretty good at it.
Right.
Um, I would say some good stuff happened, but
Yeah. I hear that a lot. So talk to me about New Moon. What was kind of the artistic vision of this project?
I actually wrote New Moon while during the pandemic. So I was home and I was trying to figure some stuff out, and I wanted to write music that meant something to me personally. I had always thought about certain aspects of my life, like me being able to have Indian classical music, South Indian Carnatic music in my life, but I grew up in New Jersey. I grew up 8,000 miles away from the home of this music. Um, but my parents loved the music. My mother is a singer. She would have vocal students come into our house all the time. So I grew up with Carnatic music in my home. But the second I leave the home, it was other music that was in my ears. So I mean, I've always known that I was lucky to have these things that I straddled two different worlds, but I never wrote music that directly addressed it or expressed that. So I was like, maybe this is a good opportunity to kind of reflect and and write about the music and the inspirations that actually brought me to where I am. And my grandmother was the first thing I thought of because my mother's mother, who I only saw when she would visit the States or when I would go to India, um, so it was infrequent in my life, but she had a profound impact on me. She was a violinist. She loved Carnatic music. And she always encouraged me throughout her life and my career. She encouraged me to be an individual, to have my own style, to have my own stamp, my own expression. Even though I have amazing gurus who are actually here in my house right now from India on tour, but I have amazing gurus that have a style that they pass down to you. Um, but we're all individuals, and she reminded me of that to say, if you're going to play this raga Kalyani, try to make it your own, do it your own way. So that actually really made a profound impression on me. And I decided that I wanted to write the New Moon Suite in honor of her and, and in honor of ancestors and maybe think about my family, my roots, where I come from. I'm now a father. I have a 10-year-old and a 7-year-old, and I think often about what I passed to them. And it's a lot of what I was given, plus some other things, minus some things. But you realize as a parent how much that you pass on culturally to your children and how you do it. And then, then I look back at my parents. I'm like, wow, thank you. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for doing that. You realize the work that they had to do to give you what you have. and that it's not always easy, but when you're young, you take things for granted. As you get older, you realize the amount of work and dedication it takes to do that, and that it's not easy. So I'm coming from a place of gratefulness, of respect and love.
What are you hoping the listener gets from the album?
I'm hoping a little bit of that. I'm hoping that they feel love and they feel connection to whatever is important in their lives. I think there's energy in the music. I think there is a lot of introspection in the music, and I invite listeners to close their eyes and to let themselves go for about 35, 40 minutes and go on the journey with us. I think every time we perform it, we go there, we tap, really into our hearts, into our souls, and we try to express that. And Indian classical music is very much about that. It's considered like a spiritual pursuit, a spiritual practice to actually just play the music, not just for the sake of entertainment or the sake of an art form. It's sometimes even thought of as something deeper than that, just for yourself as an inner connection and your personal connection to the world and the universe around you. So, for me, I hope listeners can kind of go there, can kind of shut down and block out the other things in their lives and take a moment to have some deep listening. It's the best way to appreciate music anyway. Any kind of music is deep listening. It means like that's what you're doing. You're focusing all your energies on this one thing, and I promise you, your experience will be that much better because of that.
So, how did the violin become your focus, and who were some early influences?
How the violin, I don't know how it became my focus. I mean, it was put in my hands. So I guess my grandmother played violin, so that's why it was a violin. I started with Western classical music when I was 8, and I played Western classical music through high school. So I was in like orchestras on one side, and the other side I was playing Carnatic music from a private teacher I was studying. Violinists like my teachers, like Mysore Nagaraj is the oldest brother. There's two brothers, Mysore Nagaraj and Mysore Manjunath. Mysore Nagaraj came into my life when I was 10, and I didn't know much about Carnatic music. I just started, but I was, I heard recordings of his and I went to some of his concerts because my father was a big fan, and it blew me away. I was like, whoa. There was something about the way he played. And then I met his brother, Mysore Manjunath, and they've been, my mentors, my guides in music. They've taught me so much. And like I was saying, they're actually here on tour right now. So I came from Brooklyn to my parents' house in New Jersey to spend some time with them. El Shankar is another amazing, with Shakti, McLaughlin. El Shankar was somebody that blew my mind when I was a teenager. And I couldn't get past how, what he did on the live records like Joy, and some of the straight up classical flavor that he brought to this fusion project. But then I heard stuff on, I think it's Natural Elements, the album, where he just sounded different on each song. And he didn't always sound like a pure Carnatic violinist. He sounded like he was playing the blues, or he sounded like whatever the song called for, he went into that space, and I was kind of blown away by that. And then as far as violinists, there was a handful of Carnatic violinists I can name, and they were my biggest inspirations. But I was really inspired by Coltrane at a young age. His voice, his way of stating melodies, kind of touched me when I was a teenager, and to this day, I'm still trying to, we all are, I guess, trying to tap into his way of stating things. Man, he could state the simplest melody, but it would be so profound, because it's coming from a place. And I think that's the point. You have to connect with yourself so you can say it that way. But Coltrane, yeah, I think there's a lot of different stuff that influenced me.
Yeah. What is it that you like the best about being a professional musician? What gets you up every day? What's continually motivating you to do what you do and to evolve as a musician?
Really, the feeling that I get from playing, the personal satisfaction I get from playing a note in tune, um, and expressing myself is really what gets me up in the morning, is why I still do it. I think a lot of musicians have moments where they question why they're doing this, because it's hard, right? I mean, the world doesn't necessarily take care of musicians the way it probably should, considering everybody needs music. Everybody wants music in their life. But I don't know that society is built in a way that it takes care of artists that way. So it's challenging to do it. And, you have to find various ways to make it work. And I do. And it's all because of that one thing, is like, I had a show when we released New Moon in Brooklyn at Shapeshifter Lab. It was a tough week. Some changes happened in my life, and I was thinking, I got to figure out what the next step, for me, like how, maybe it's, exploring different avenues, and maybe having a bit of a moment where you question why you're doing, why you're doing something. And then we played that gig that night, and we connected. Me, Sameer, and Damon connected in such a special way. It felt so good to play. It had been a while since we had played together, and all my answer, all the questions were answered that night. It's like, oh, this is why you do it. And I think that happens every time I play. Is like that feeling. Nothing like it.
So at the end of the day, everyone has a perception of you, family, friends, fans, everyone around you, but you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Mm. It's a tough question. Well, I mean, I think at the end, I'm an artist. I'm a violinist that is not necessarily in any which genre. I think a lot of times I think of myself as a Carnatic musician, but then I also think of myself as just a musician, because people from one side that don't know about Carnatic music will immediately put you in that space. The Carnatic music community might see me as somebody who does something else. They'll be like, well, you're not just a Carnatic musician. You do other things. And so, like, I mean, everybody wants to tell you what you are, like you're saying, but I would say that I'm a creative musician that wants to explore all the ways that, I can express myself through different styles. I'm open to so many different things. I like to think of myself as being kind of an open book, and not to say that I can play everything, because I can't. But I'm open to everything, and I'm open to letting those things come inside and take place, within me, so that I can try to understand it better. And then whatever comes out, I want it to be authentic. So I'd say I'm an authentic musician that cares deeply about different traditions, and just wants to remain open and curious so that I can continue to grow.
Very well said. So if anyone wants to pick up a copy of New Moon, catch you live, any of the good business in your world, where can they go?
Yeah, you can go on Bandcamp. That's the best place to get it. I released this with Greenleaf Music, which is Dave Douglas's label. So, you can check out Greenleaf, check out New Moon on Bandcamp. It's streaming on all the platforms that you would want to find it, so you can take a listen. But if you like what you hear, go to Bandcamp, pick it up. There's vinyl on the way, and you'll be able to order that from my website, which is arunramamurthytrio.com. That vinyl will be shipped out to you. There's CDs available, of course, if you have a CD player, and digital, obviously. So, you can find, playing around. We're going to be touring a lot in the next year as well. So.
Okay. Arun, this has been wonderful. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your story. Thank you for your time. Best of luck with the release.
Thanks so much, Joe. I appreciate it.